Let's talk about game subscriptions. They're in the news. Ubisoft's talking about them, as well as the developers of Baldur's Gate 3, one pro, one anti. So, I think the good side of game subscriptions is they often save people who buy lots of games money. That's the goal, right? So my first subscription I ever got was EA Origin Access. They named it so confusingly. Simple as I play Madden every year. I'm going to get Madden. I am a Browns fan. As every good Clevelander, we play it. We win the Super Bowl with our great undefeated season, and then we watch reality play out and we cry. But I was buying that every year already, and then I'm going to buy some other EA game at the time because you had the Battlefields were coming out regularly, that Anthem coming out. Like, yeah, there are a lot of games coming out. You don't see that from EA anymore. I worry a little bit about them. But it was a good deal for the subscription, so I got it. And then you look at other subscription services that came out, like Game Pass, the most popular. We were on it. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Again, super great access for players. Try a ton of games. And then you have Ubisoft's one, which is now $18 a month, but was $15 a month. And I looked at that because I wanted to play one of the Assassin's Creed. And all of a sudden I'm like, I don't want to pay $200, and this is the only game I'm going to play. So why don't I just give you $15 and finish the game in a month? So I guess I saved some money there. But while this is good for consumers, and consumers almost always win, it's also problematic for consumers. So Ubisoft has a quote here where he's talking about how we've moved off of having physical goods to being in the cloud and Steam to now being into subscription. He says, that's the path and it's inevitable. It feels a little inevitable, which feels bad. But so he's like, you're not going to own games anymore, which it's not the most artfully delivered line, but I understand what he's saying, which is weird because when I buy a game on Steam, I think I own it. And so that's a negative, that you won't be able to go back if you drop the subscription service, because then I'll tell you what the biggest sucker move any subscription service ever does is tell you, hey, we'll give you 1 month free at the end because of something you did. That's meaningless, because when you get it in your head, you're going to quit. Okay. But ignore that for a minute. There's other problems with subscription services and Zen? Sorry, I'm bad at names. I'm just pronouncing them, bad at words. Follows me on Twitter. Twitter's horrible though. But here I'm gonna post some of his quotes as well. And you can see his whole thread. He is talking more about gatekeeping and how you want gamers to sell to customers. And that is a thing that you probably heard me say before, right? I didn't make VR games because I was worried that Meta was coming in and distorting the market by funding games that weren't going to recoup their development costs, which means then that you're beholden to Meta and they decided what went on the platform. Now, gatekeeping is a really big problem for subscription services because inherently, since they're paying you upfront to put things on their service for a period of time, they're picking winners, which means they've got to pick the winners, and which means they're gatekeeping. That sounds horrible and bad, but the people at Microsoft and Xbox who do this are actually really good people. They really care about independent games, and they're trying. But this is the problem that they have. But here is the big problem for the publishing world of when you have multiple games in Game Pass. It used to be you would see these breakout hits. Something would hit on Steam, and it would make all of your money for the year, and it would fund all the other games. Same for investors. This isn't happening now with Game Pass because Game Pass is capping that, because Game Pass up front, you're saying, I'm going to get this much money. Now, for small development teams, that's awesome. You got money in the bank. You're like, we're good. But for bigger development teams, you're like, oh, wait a minute. And so what happened for us, my game, was we released on Game Pass, and then the number one piece of review we got on Steam was, hey, didn't know I had this on Game Pass. Ends up there running a 3-month free thing for PC, and it just devastated us. Because our original goal was, you're going to play it on Game Pass as well as on PC, Steam. And this community on Game Pass will always be there so that when you buy it on Steam, you can find players. And we'll grow that way. The problem was nobody bought it on Steam. They just played it on Game Pass because the most hardcore people who buy the most games also subscribe to the most services, right? So it really hurt us. And our biggest selling month was the day we left, the month we left Game Pass. Now, that is not to like, again, like there's ways maybe around it. There's ways you can scope down what you're making, or now Microsoft suggesting you do, games as a service, and you monetize inside of that and all of that kind of thing. But the reality is, for us, it didn't work. And I talked to a lot of other developers and it didn't work. It was the same thing. It really just stole their thunder and their sales. And then when they came out on Steam, it's already an old game. It's not getting the coverage. It doesn't have the buzz. It hurts them. Again, knowing that now, you probably approach it differently. So it's not totally out of the woods. But that's the problem, the subscription services, right? And then not owning the game. So now, the not owning of the game, again, I really feel like I own a game when I buy it on Steam, and I know you guys are all going to correct me and say I don't, but that's how I feel. I feel the same way when I buy it on Xbox or PlayStation or anything else digitally. I don't like clutter, so I'm fine without the clutter. But yeah, I guess I don't own those, right? And now it's going to be even more true, and gamers need to get used to that. Well, now, I mean, some things are changing in the landscape of gaming, right? You have Fortnite, which is the only game some people will ever play in their life, and it has a million games inside of it. And I watch it, and I'm watching people play like a bad version of, I don't know, some music game. And I'm like, that looks fun, but whatever. It's not for me. And that's cool. Like, they clearly know what they're doing. They've got a giant audience there. And they're trying to UGC it up where, again, you make more things inside of that. That's what Roblox was trying to do. But now Roblox is interesting because Lethal Company was a Roblox developer. The game maker was the guy who made Lethal Company. You know what I'm saying. And he chose to release it on Steam because of that giant upside, right? I think Steam announced they made like $46 million. That dude, like we used to decide how good the game went. Were you walking to work? Were you taking the bus to work? Were you parking in downtown for work? Were you taking a marina, taking a boat because we were by the marina? Or were you flying a helicopter? He is helicopter rich. And good for him. But Steam doesn't gatekeep and Steam doesn't pick winners, right? They amplify winners. They don't say, hey, this crazy weird game over here made by this solo guy is going to make $1 gajillion. We should promote it. They're like, hey, a lot of people are playing this. Not more people are playing this. Well, let's throw more wood on the fire. And that's what they're really good at. The subscription services aren't good at that. Subscription services have to pick winners. And they pick what's familiar. They pick what they understand. They pick what they like. And again, not bad people. I think Cuphead is a game that a few of the Microsoft people really just went behind and backed and helped fund and make sure that it got made. I mean, the developers did a lot of the work. But, it really got to be where it was because Microsoft supported it for so long. So, they can pick some winners like that, and that works. And there's pretty good track record, but not everything's a good track record. And not everything is what people want or are surprised about, right? I mean, would you rather, what game, like if you had to pick one or the other and it had to be Starfield or Lethal Company, right? I mean, I think Starfield sold even more than Lethal Company, but what is the more, and not to knock Starfield, it's a fine game. I'm saying like, what is the more special, different kind of game? That's a bad question. I should cut that. I won't. But yeah. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like we lose something there. And so as people who buy games, we're not going to stop that. It's a really good deal. Like you don't buy it because it's not on sale. And people had said Steam sales were going to kill the industry. And maybe this is just an extension of Steam sales. And Ubisoft even sees this where they're like, hey, we have the $18 subscription. We also have a $7 subscription for older games for people who want to buy those. But I mean, I already own them. But I guess I understand that because then you're not doing them, putting them on sale on Steam for $1. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just curious how people feel about subscription services. I think, so most YouTubers come with a, hey, this evil thing, and I'm going to really rant about it instead of apologizing for everybody in this. Because I think it's a very complex problem that is going to shape a lot of what our industry is in the future. And I'm really happy to see people like Sven talking out about it directly and about some of the dangers of it. And even happy with the Ubisoft guy being clear with their intentions, right? So it's hard for developers. It's hard for gamers because if you want to support developers, right? I mean, I think someone posted the other day that all a game developer wants to do is feed his family and house them and make games. And that is kind of true. But then we enter this complex thing where that's not available and all the layoffs and all of that, what's happening, right? Because then there's this optimization that we have to make the most money. It's not enough to make money. And then when someone's just about making money and help shaping that, that's like a good and a bad. So it's complex. I'm kind of curious of how you people all feel about subscriptions. And do you own a game that you buy on Steam? That is a good question.